Studio. We're going to do some advanced stuff today that we haven't done in previous videos. This one's going to involve getting data from a Google Sheet into a data node, and that's the title of our today's tutorial, into a data node, and then we're going to take that data node and we're going to assign it to a widget in a composition. So first I have to reintroduce my cohorts. Let's start with Sunny UK with Suzanne.
Hi guys.
She's going to help us today on the composition building, and then we've got Catherine in an undisclosed location in the middle of the United States. She's going to work. She's going to show us how to make the data node, and that's going to be something new that we haven't touched base on. It's going to look at our API documentation and how to send a REST command to create a data node, because currently we don't have the ability to do that in the UI, but that's not the end of the world. It'll come as we get there, as the R&D guys catch up with us, but we can do it with REST, and it's not that hard. And we have Travis, who is around the corner from me in the big studio. He's going to keep us honest, I hope, and keep the stream solid. So I guess we dive in, and we're going to start a little not typical. We're going to start with the data side of this. We need to get some data. I'm going to call it a list of data. Another word for a list of data in our sort of world of data is an array. It's an array of data. We're going to create an array of data, or a list, and we're going to push that into a composition. But before it hits the composition, it needs to hit this little middleman called Mr. Data Node. And the data node can then receive the data, and like I said earlier, we can distribute it into a composition, actually to multiple compositions, to all the compositions out there with every client that needs it. So I think step one is I need to share my screen. I think that's a good place to start. So I will go right into, let's see here, the sheet. This sheet. Let's share this guy here. Yep, the share button doesn't want to, there it goes. Travis, you picking up that, are you picking up my,
oh yeah, I'm picking it up.
Screen?
I just,
perfect,
realized,
sorry, yeah.
I made a slight technical error earlier. We're gonna have to live with it, I guess.
That's okay. No, I think there was something on my side. The network kind of stopped for a second, said something about low resources, who knows? But in any event, I'm in Google Sheets. This should be pretty familiar to pretty much anyone who's watching this type of video. So what we have here is some defined, we came up with this nomenclature up here. It's just a title, URL, a date, and a text. And why did we put that at the top? We did that because in this very first cell, we're doing something kind of cool. We need to get some data. And I don't want to type in the data manually. I just want to have Google do the heavy lifting. So I have a function right up here. The function is an import feed function. And you can see this URL right here. And this URL, Google, again, is doing all the heavy lifting. If I just copy this real quick, copy this into another, and you'll see here's the BBC News RSS feed. So that's what we're going to use as our data source. So again, very handy, because Google is going to go get that data for us. And it's also got this false 20 little modifier at the end of the function, and that just makes sure we get a return of exactly 20 messages. This will auto update for us thanks to Google with their functions, which is great. So the next piece to the puzzle is we need to get this data pushed into a data node. And at that point, I'm going to jump back over to Catherine, and she's going to create a data node. So I have a place to put this data, and I'll show you what we do in a second. So let's go back over to Catherine. But first, I got to stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Okay, so share my screen. Sorry guys, you saw my desktop for a second. Okay, so what we need to do for this data to get into your overlay is you have to create this thing called a data node, which Stephen just reviewed for us. So in order to do that, you need to go to our developer docs, which can be found at Singular.live. And you're going to want to click on the Singular.live REST API. When you do that, there's a bunch of information for developers. I don't really speak a lot of developer speak, but I am able to understand some of this. But what we need today is you've got to scroll down into additional REST API resources and hit see Postman documentation of REST command collection here. You can also download it. So for example, if you've already got Postman, Postman is what we call it, an app, Stephen, that we're going to use today to send this
Yep.
REST command.
Exactly, it's a REST client, and you can use it in app form as an actual. You can download Postman and use it as a download as a standalone application. You can also use it in the browser. And just to on the download Postman REST command collection, if you click that, it's going to give you a big JSON file. You're going to want the URL from that, and then Postman can import that URL. So it's sometimes a little confusing. It says download, but really what you're doing is you're getting a link, and then the Postman will accept a link and bring in our entire API collection into Postman. Again, there's lots of REST clients out there. I use sometimes when I'm doing really quick stuff, I use one called Yark, which is called short for yet another REST client. It's a browser add-on, but Postman is our really choice. And again, we've already built a collection for you, so everything you can do in the API is in that Postman collection.
Okay, so instead of importing, I'm just going to click this first link here, which is see Postman documentation. It's going to take you, if you already, like I've got my account open here, but if you already have a Postman account, it'll take you, to Postman, or I think it'll prompt you to create an account. It's free, so go ahead and do that. But here's the whole list of our developer docs. Lots of stuff in here. We're only going to use one command today. But once you get this open, you're going to hit run in Postman on the top right. And what that's going to do is, I like to use the web version. Honestly, I haven't used Postman for Mac, but click that. This is my workspace. Going to take a second.
It's a really powerful REST client. It can do, I mean, it's very nicely laid out.
All right, I don't know why it's
load up.
Oh, there we go.
Cool.
Okay, so it just dropped in our developer docs. Now I already had one in here before prepared. So you're just going to see one when you click on this the first time. I just need to double check which one is the prepared one. So this is the one that gets dropped in here. And let me go back to that because it's a little bit tricky. You go to that parent folder here and you click this button and then you hit edit. Here, you're going to have to adjust the authorization. So you need to put in your username and password so that Postman can actually access your Singular account and create the data node and do all sorts of other things. So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this actually.
Just a quick word on that. It's basic authentication. So it's username and password. And what Catherine was referring to is really in Postman, you can have for any of the REST commands that are in that collection that you see, the directory that she's got selected there. If you do it at the parent level, you don't have to authenticate on a request by request basis for the REST calls. So you just do it at the parent, and then you don't have to worry about it again. But again, it's a little getting used to, but it's pretty powerful. So you can see the complete API, all of the collection, every one of our REST calls is in those directories right there. And again, we're only going to use one. So
yeah,
data creation.
So what I just showed you here in edit, like Stephen said, is this parent authorization. What we mean by child authorization, I guess, is at an actual command level. I believe that you can set the authorization here. So by default, it's inherit authorization from parent, but you can go in and change it if you want to. That's just extra work. But if you're an advanced user and you've got maybe multiple customers and you need authorization to, a bunch of different accounts, you can do it this way and it might be easier. But anyways, the command that we need to actually create a data node is under data node API. And it's this post command here. So click on that. Authorization's good because it's inheriting from the parent. You don't have to worry about this header stuff. And then all you need to do in the body is actually tell Postman what folder to send the new created data node to. So if I jump over to Singular, in my dashboard, I have this specific folder selected. In here, in this inspector button, you can see that there's this really long folder ID. Now we have 2 different folder IDs. You need to just grab this one. So go ahead and copy that. So it's whatever folder you want your data node to be sent to. We want it to be this folder. So I've copied it and pasted it already. Actually, let me just double check. Yeah,
So
that's
what
right.
that actually is, it's called a UUID. And like Catherine said, this is nice. If you do it here, then if you don't, it's going to go into whatever folder, you know, you're going to have to search under recents, and then you can find it that way. But this is the more, you know, specific way to do it. It's definitely the smart way to do it. Otherwise, you don't know where the data node's going.
Yeah. And then also you can rename this. I'm just going to keep it as new data node, but if you want a specific name for it, that's fine too. Once all of that is set, you just hit send. And it says sending request, and there's no errors, which is great. So if we go back over here into the folder, there's the data node. So it's kind of a lot of clicks to get set up to get this data node created, but once it's there, it's ready to accept live data. So I think with that, I'm going to hand it over to Stephen. Although actually there's one command here in the API to actually update data node payload. So if you want to like manually update the payload this way, you can do that. This is probably confusing here, the crawl speed, crawl text, that's just default data that we populate this command with, but you can change it and then send the data that you want to manually to it. But we're not going to cover that today. We're going to cover, I think the more easy way, I would say, and you guys probably would agree, which is sending data from Google Sheets. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephen now.
Yep, absolutely. It is Google Sheets is great because we can push data from a Google Sheet into that data node, and that'll be the next step that we're going to show you. So Catherine created the data node, so I will go ahead and share my screen. Let's see here, screen 2, and we'll hit share. Okay, so we're back over to my Google Sheet. Now, the first thing I want to do is I actually made a page called content here. This is exactly what I want to send, but you can see it here in the send table to data node tab. This is where we're going to work, and this has some nice instructions that Catherine set up prior to this stream, which we're going to make available to you. So the process is, what we're interested is we want to get all of this block of data from here, from A4 all the way down to D24. So to do that, the first thing we need to do is tell this sheet, actually we're going to use a Google script to handle this. The data node ID is going to get entered here. And if we go over to the dashboard, again, recently created, I should be able to see the new data node. Nope, let's see. My recent data nodes. 2 minutes ago. So that's another way to find it. Like, if you know, just go to the most recent thing that was created in the account. I could see right here. And like Catherine said, she could have renamed it on the request from Postman, or you can rename it here too. So either way, and, you know, maybe I'll just call this data node 1. Okay, so it has an ID and it's 3421. I'll copy that. I'll go back over to the sample sheet here, and I'm going to paste it here. And in this next cell over here, I've got authentication. Now, authentication, well, the reason we need that is we need to authorize the pushing of data into a Singular account. So to do that, if we go over to, you guys, I was asking this earlier, and then I forget where it was. Oh, it's right here.
Yeah.
So right here, in the future, we're going to have this built into Singular, meaning the creation of an encoding of your username and password. But all this is just a separate website that just does base64 encoding. So you basically are going to type in your username, colon, and your password. So if this was like Stephen at Singular.live, for example, and I do a colon and I do, I don't know, my password was 555, for example. When you hit encode, you're going to get this result. And that is your username and password that's been encoded so that it can be your information can be safely sent across the internet and someone can't pick it up. So once you have that, now you just need to copy that and come back over to your Google Sheet. And that's going to go right here into this field right here. We'll go ahead and regenerate that authentication code, Catherine, because I think it just displayed, not that it's the end of the world. We can do that, but you're going to paste that here. So, and why am I pasting it in cells A3 and B3? Well, the next piece of the puzzle is to take a look at what's the mechanism by which we're going to send, push, more specifically push this data, this array of data into Singular. Well, we go to Tools, Script Editor, and we're going to provide you with this script. Oh, that's not nice. Unable to open this file at this time. That's not nice. Why is that?
Did you
Is
pick the file or the script editor? That's
the script editor. We need this. Let's see.
I've never seen that.
I got to be honest. I've never seen this dialog box ever. My only guess is that
I can open it on mine.
You see, that's nice. Maybe we can jump over to you. I like that.
All right, hold on.
I've never seen that dialog box. It must be a permissions thing on the sheet, but actually this is good because this is the kind of stuff that happens when you make these connections. And again, this is a more advanced
Steven,
video
you're gone.
tutorial. Yeah, I'm having some issues on my it keeps giving me a low system resources message on my beautiful new HP ZBook, whatever.
How much stuff is happening out of that office over there?
Probably. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm not sharing my screen, so
all right.
There we go.
I'm sharing mine so you can hopefully see. All right.
So there's a lot of stuff in there. If you're like me and you don't have any data programming anything experience, it just looks like a bunch of nonsense. But these are two, what would you call them? I don't know what they call them in
these are functions. So we're gonna call these functions, and this function specifically, the send table to data node, what it does is it wraps that, it takes the defined rows and columns that we're defining at the very top of this function in cells. So we're telling you go from A4 to D24. That range of data, it's going to take that data and it's going to turn it into an array, and it's going to use, where is it going to send it? Well, in A3, where Suzanne is pointing right there, in A3, you're going to have, that's the data node. And then the authentication, you have to be authenticated. So that's why we converted your username and password into an authentication code. And then the only other thing is the very first one is the table that we're sending, or the tab, if you will, sometimes referred to as tab, is the send table to data node. That's the sheet that we're sending. So and again, we're going to supply this or offer this to users, so you can just take this script in its entirety and copy and paste it into your own Google Sheet. So it's pretty straightforward. It's just, again, if you move, if I jump back over to my screen share, because I don't think we need to, I will try sharing this time. There we go. Thank you, Suzanne, for saving the day. We might have to come back to you if it doesn't like to push the data. So what we've also done in this sheet, I just actually executed the push, but that's okay. There's a button here that we created, and all we did is, I can't remember, I think Catherine, you and I just made a little image, or drawing. You can draw. Yeah, it's just a little drawing. So we made a little fancy little button, and there's 3 little dots on the right. And if you right click on those 3 little dots.
Really quick, to get this is something that is kind of annoying. To get to that 3-dot button, you've got to right click on the drawing sometimes. And Suzanne, you know what I'm talking about, but anyways.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
And I just press it.
Yeah, so there's some quirk. You sort of kind of, like right now, if I click on it, it's going to execute a function. But if I right click, then I can move it around the screen. But then after it's selected, then you hit the 3 dots. And what we've done is we've assigned a script. Which script? Well, when you click this button, send the table to the data node. Now this is a table of data, right? We've got 4 rows and 25 columns or so. I have noticed just a side little thing. Sometimes for whatever reason, sometimes this just vanishes. I don't know why. So you go and you click the button and nothing happens. It's because this, you need to have on click send table to data node. Now again, why is it on? Because that's the name of the function. What Suzanne had shown you earlier, that is the function.
In the script editor.
Send
Yeah.
table to data node is the name of the function. So then what happens is when I click this button, let's see. Oh, there it is. Actually, it did that issue that I mentioned. If I go to assign script, it's gone.
Ah, you found the bug. This is, I was going to
I don't know
mention
what
this.
it is. It's very
So
and
if you press cancel or just close out of it, it'll wipe out it'll wipe it out. Whereas if you press OK or you have to press the right button. It's a weird thing within Google.
anyways, that's why Catherine was when we were doing this, we put it. It's here as well. So if you lose it, but literally all you're doing is you're just on a click sending the table. So now let's try it. I click it. There it goes. It's running the script. Now the very first time you do this, it's going to want authentication. Google is going to want to know, hey, are you cool with this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to send it? Do you want to push this data to this location? So now all we need to do is, well, where did it go? And where did it go and what does it look like? It looks like the data looks like this when it's in Google Sheets, but what does it look like when it lands into Singular? What happened in that script? Well, we can see that if we jump over to the dashboard, here's the data node. And again, the inspection button here, I set the dashboard to look for data nodes. I know the data node here. You can search for it, 3421. If I do it, now I can look at the JSON. You can see here's the data, right? It's kind of, I like sometimes when I do these kind of tutorials, if I just take it, select it all, copy, I'm just going to open up a little helper page that I go to jasoneditor.org. Very simple. I'm going to select all, paste, and then I'm going to view it. Why isn't it looking like a nice fancy array? Oh, it's always
Just like get Google plugins that will do this as well. So all you have to do is just paste the
exactly.
URL and that'll do it that way.
Should give us as an array, and I don't know why. I must be clicking something wrong. I do this all the time, but it's not working today. Let me make a new one. Yep. There we go. In any event, this is the data, and you can view it as an array. I can't quite figure out why it's not wanting to display as an array. It's what you're getting here is one big long string of text, right? So it's kind of hard to see the individual, I'll call it pages, if you will. For the life of me, I don't know why that's not working. Anyways, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. There's no need. That is the data that got pushed into the data node. And the next step to this process is, what do you do with it? So then the next piece is you got to connect this data to a widget in a composition. Now, this specific example that we're doing today, you could take this whole JSON string and put it into or JSON payload and attach it to a text field. The text property within the text widget, and you're going to see it's going to display it. But we have two widgets specifically that accept data in this format. One's called a table, and one is called a grid. So we're going to use the table today. They're interchangeable. There's a few differences in them, but effectively, those are the two widgets that accept the data that just got pushed in this format. So I think now it's Sunny UK. I think it's Suzanne. We're gonna go over to Suzanne. So I'm gonna stop sharing.
Stephen, did you want to show them how to set up a sheet trigger, an automatic, where you don't have to click the push send?
You know what? Let Suzanne build it, and then we'll come back to me. It's a good point. And that's I've gotten asked that many times from a number of different customers. You know, they want to make automated things, whether it's social media messages that they put in a Google Sheet manually or a ticker or what have you. But let's get the composition going, and then we'll come back over to that trigger piece of Google Sheets.
That sounds good.
Suzanne, it's all the table is yours.
All right. So I'm going to start by opening up the composition, and whoever's in it, I'm sorry, I'm kicking you out.
It was probably me. You know, we used to allow multiple users to have the same comp open at the same time, and boy, did that get fun. It was fun. It was crazy.
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is come over to my data nodes tab at the root level. The reason why I'm doing it at the root level is because it means that if I had multiple element or multiple overlays, and I could add it to both of these. If I had lower third or a ticker or something like that, I could add the same data to both of them without having to keep going and adding this data node, so I don't have it like 6 or 7 times within one composition. Again, Singular is very smart that it'll look for it in the current folder, whereas if it was in another folder, I'd have to search for it. Again, I could also search for it here in the search bar at the top.
Data node 1, there it is.
And just double click, and then we can see it. If I press the information button or the inspector, I can then have a look at the JSON and how it is within that. And then I could also copy this JSON and then by
Much like the dashboard I showed earlier, there's another way to visualize the data, or not visual, yeah, just view it to make sure the data's coming in.
Yeah, you can see all the different data that's coming in from that, just that URL there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over to my table. From my table, I'm going to connect it up to my root. You can see there it says root/data node 1. I can then just call it table JSON, and we can see that it's all there. But before I go any further, we're not going to see any of this data update until I come into my composition and add in my control nodes. So I know that from the sheet over here that I need something called title with a small t, and I know I need text. So I'm just going to throw that over there. Title and text, if I could spell.
And that's all going to be in the same, it needs to look exactly the same as it is in the payload. Otherwise, Singular won't be able to recognize it. So it can't be like caps if it's not caps in your Google Sheet.
Yeah, so we can demonstrate that. So if I change this so it's actually with a, proper caps locks, we'll find, hopefully, let me get back over. I can change the page that it's on. Here we go. If I just increment that to 2, hopefully it will go. So that's updating, but the title isn't. So now if I go back into my composition and change this back to title with a small t, save. You can see that we've got it how we want it.
This is a very slick way to use the table widget because, the table widget is called the table widget. So you would expect to see a table, and we're not. We're seeing a lower third. But what we're effectively doing is we're just setting the number of the rows to 1. So in the table widget parameters, you can see how Suzanne has it set to elements per page. Another word for that in this example would be the row. We're only looking at one row of the array of data that originated from the Google Sheet. And so if she sets it to 2, you're going to see 2 messages, or 3 or 4. And then the other piece, and we have it set, you can see horizontal and whatnot, but the current page, that's what row you're displaying. So current page is certainly set to 3, so we can go work our way up or down the array of data. You're going to see a couple of other control nodes up at the top. Above it, there's the advance every X seconds and maximum number of pages, which we going to show you that piece to the puzzle, because I'll say the plot thickens with the data, because now a lot of users ask us, what, this is really cool. I've got all this data. It showed up in the composition. Now I just want it to automatically go from page to page to page, which would probably be the next piece to this puzzle. So I think, Suzanne, you covered everything and did a very fine job, I must say. I'm not confused.
That's a good thing. I like that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand it back over.
So it is like I said, a pretty creative way of using the table. Now the grid widget, very similar, can do the same thing. Some different play around between the table and the grid depending on your use case. So we're going to go back. Oh, I was the one that had the composition open. Intro to data nodes. So we're going to view compositions, and here's this is our guy right here, right?
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
Thank you. here we go. So I got the composition open, and let's take a look. Okay. So the next piece, to get this to automatically advance based on what data is in there. Now, it's not reading from the sheet right now. The sheet, we push the data from the sheet. It lives one big array of data in the composition, and we are going from page to page manually. Again, down here in the subcomposition, we've exposed the current page. So if I go 5, we'll see the fifth message. So what we have, and we're going to offer this
really quick, Stephen, sorry, just so you guys are aware, all these control nodes were created before. So when you do it, you're going to have to create them. And he's about to go into the first two, what those mean. But the current page, that's just a control node that's connected to the current page property on the table widget. Can you show that really fast?
Right here, down here.
I just wanted to cover that. Yeah, see, if you scroll down a little bit more, you can see.
I gotta zoom out again, sorry. It's probably gonna get a little small. It's right here.
Yeah, so it's green, it's been connected. So you can also just change it, there to see your data go in. But anyways, I wanted to make sure everyone was aware that.
No, it's a very good point. And I also want to say that this naming convention, the camel case, right? Little a, big E, big S, X. This is defined. What's going on here, what we're about to show you is we are going to add a script on top of this composition that is going to automate it. So how are we going to do that? And we're going to supply this script for you. Right here, open composition script editor. It's going to pop open the script for this composition. And let's see, the one we're interested in, I'm going to close all of these. You can see in Singular, you can have global scripts, overlay scripts, root composition scripts, and you can have scripts dedicated to an individual subcomposition. What's ours? We called it a lower third. So in this lower third, we have a script. Again, this will be available to anybody who's watching this. And what this script does is as you can see, it starts to automatically advance. I might have to zoom out here. I hope it's not too small because you can see the script editor is incredibly powerful. We're going to be going into a lot of script editor stuff moving forward because the guys have done an amazing job with it. Okay, so if I go down the composition tree, I can see the lower third is in, and I can adjust the properties that we want to adjust, or for example, the speed. So advance every X seconds, it's going to go faster between messages. Every 4 seconds, we're going to get an advance to the next message. Now here, the max number of pages, I need to tell it how many pages within the array do I want to display. Well, I want all 20 of them, so I'll leave it at 20. Now the third control node you don't see here, and that's current page. Remember, you had seen it in the composition. And the reason you don't see it there in the script editor is I'm hiding it in the form. Okay, and why am I hiding it in the form? Because when you open this composition in Studio, our control rundown list, I don't want operators to see this current page. There's no need for them to see this. They're not manually adjusting. The script is sending a value here to this control field, and it is connected to current page. So that's why I hid this in form. That's why when you go to the script editor, you don't see it here. So it's just a small little nuance piece. So again, I can slow this down. I don't know if I go every 10. Again, we're going to provide this script. And when I mentioned the naming convention, absolutely, these, if you change the naming convention here of the control nodes, you need to be mindful of that, because if you notice in the script, we are calling for, as you can see here, set maximum number of pages and maximum number of pages right here, and that's camel case. As long as I'm right here and we're down into the nitty gritty stuff, some people see these two fields. There's an ID and a title. The title is what you see in Studio. So if you want something a little bit more descriptive, so for an operator, they might not want to see camel case. So you might want to type this out differently, which you totally can do. You can change, advance every X seconds, for example. So we give you two fields. This one, the ID, is what we're talking to, if you will, in the script, the ID of the control node. For super advanced users out there, I'm just going to throw this out there. You can also talk directly to the composition tree. You don't have to use this control man, which essentially is, I'll call it sort of a middleman between the tree and the script, but that's probably for an even more advanced use case. So again, you don't see the data, the script executing here, and it won't. You're going to see the script executing in Singular Studio or on the output URL of Singular Studio or in the script editor here. So again, you can see it kind of went fast there and then slowed down because it was catching up with the browser was catching up with previous sent commands from the script. So there's only one more piece to this puzzle, which I think people who are doing, maybe this might be again, we made it like a lower third. This might be a ticker, for example, ticker messages, or which essentially that's what it is here. It's just going through those messages. If I jump back over to the Google Sheet for a moment, the question I get asked quite frequently is, I don't want to push that to data node manually. I want it to do it every 5 hours, every 3 hours, what have you. And you can do that. And I think I'm going to have Suzanne do that, only because I don't know why the script editor won't let me open this. So Suzanne, I'm going to have to pass this back over to you to jump over to triggers, and we'll show people Google triggers, which is the final piece of the puzzle in automating data from a Google Sheet into a data node, and then in a looping fashion inside of Singular. So that little blue arrow, the blue arrow next to live can take you to the project. The big massive
She's actually
blue arrow.
found, well, hold on, she's found another way too, though.
Oh,
Otherwise, you guys are going to see everything in our account, which might be kind of confusing. It's through the edit button, right?
Yeah, so instead of, you can go that way and you can see the entire thing, everything. What you can do is just come down to the edit button, and then you can come to your current project ones.
Trigger, yeah. Nice. I didn't know that one. Never saw that one.
Yeah, no, it's just like thinking. Then you could do like all your triggers, but that would probably open up, like, you'd have to select the right project and it gets a bit messy. You could do it just by doing this way. Now, I haven't set any triggers up on this, so this is probably a very good way of doing it. So then we have to come down to the add trigger button here. This will generate the pop-up. So our first thing that we need to select is click send to, I can't speak right now. Click send to table.
Send table to data node.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's you just have to select the right function, and that is the one that we're talking about.
Yeah.
We don't really have a head button, so that can just be left as it is. And then you can do it from spreadsheet, you can do it time driven, or you can do it from calendar. We're going to do a time driven one. So we can get it to update every hour, every day, every week, every month, or we can set a specific time if we wanted to. And then we could just set that we want it like every, every 3rd minute. So if I do it on a minute, and I'll do it every 5 minutes, I want it to update. And then if there's any failure, I want it to update me, daily. And I can just press save.
Should we talk for a second on being smart about what your triggers are in Google in terms of?
Well, if you have a massive sheet of data and you're pushing to us every minute, or I don't know what the smallest increment of time is Google, that's we're going to flag that for sure, because there's and we are working actively on a data management on our end, on our back end. So I know that I was talking to the dev guys yesterday, and to make sure we don't get flooded with commands from massive amounts of data. So be mindful of that. And if you don't need the data coming in so quickly, then there's no sense in sending it. There'll be more on that. Our platform is evolving as we speak, so to speak, and we are going to be managing the data, like any other cloud-based platform where you're sending data or receiving data. That's it, Suzanne. Now that script is going to run. Actually, the other day I built this for a customer, a ticker, and I deleted the account that I had created the authentication with. I deleted it from the customer's account because I no longer needed it. And then I got the warning message from Google that said, hey, your trigger doesn't work, which is really awesome. You see all the bits and pieces working. So I was like, oh, so I had to make a new authentication code and apply that to the Google Sheet. So I think one of the biggest gotchas, I have just one more comment, and I think we're probably done. Pretty sure, getting pretty close. Let me just share my screen really quick. One of the gotchas that I know from doing a lot of support on Google Sheets. What are the differences between pushing versus pulling? Because many of you out there probably have realized that we have a Google Sheet widget, and that widget requests data from a Google Sheet, and you put your authentication in the composition. It's over here. As I talk, I should probably show you, just to give you a quick, because there might be some confusion which one to use. So here's the Google Sheet widget. This one, you're requesting the data, right? And that's why you have to enter in your sheet ID, your value range, what piece of the Google Sheet you want. You have to generate an API key. You have to go to Google and generate this API key. They have pluses and minuses. It's not a question of one being better than the other. It depends on the use case and what you're doing. We have both, and I will tell you too that we are actively pursuing and have already written for a number of customers Google add-ons, where this process will become decidedly easier on the push side of things, because there's quite a bit of setup in our current configuration. But with the Google add-on, again, we've done a number of them where our plans are to get a more sophisticated push mechanism, a real Google add-on, so it's a lot easier to do this. I think the only other one that I thought I'd throw out there is sometimes what happens, I've noticed, someone might expand this, the number of rows and columns, and they forget to go over to their, again, the script editor. Again, I don't know why my script editor isn't popping up, but that's for another day. You need to make sure that if you change the size or add, like we didn't use URL or date, we certainly could have. We could have displayed the URL and the date. To be mindful, if you start changing the size of this in terms of the range, you have to change it in your script. Now, for more sophisticated users, there's ways to do that from here, where you can define it and it talks to the script and back and forth. But for now, if you do change the size of this, we have it set to, oh gosh, A2 to D24 in the script.
Yeah, and same thing with if you're, for whatever reason, pasting your data node ID and authorization key somewhere else that is in, I think, A3 and B3, then you need to update that too. So.
Yep. And also another thing that is extremely helpful when you're doing this kind of stuff is obviously that Google, the console is your friend. I mean, in Google, in the browser, you can bring that up and you can see errors with the data is not sending or what have you. So, and that's just F12, I believe, on the keyboard. I think.
Should we open up the output
Oh,
through
yeah.
a control app?
Let me share my screen again. Yeah, I apologize, guys. Something's wrong with my camera. Sometimes it says low system resources. Maybe I didn't have enough coffee this morning. Anyways, if we go to the dashboard, here's the composition, new, control app, studio, go. And let's see what this looks like. Beep, beep, take it in. Let's grab the output URL. I'll copy it, paste it, and a little finessing. It should just start running here automatically. It sometimes takes a second in the beginning. There it goes. So it probably has to wait the full 10 seconds or whatever. It's probably in the script how long it takes in the initial load of the data. It's set to advance every 10 seconds, and you're seeing the complete circle here. Again, you're getting, I'll just quickly review. Google Sheet with a function is getting the data from the BBC for a news feed. Next step is to assign a script to that, to convert it into a array, push it into Singular, into a data node, which we showed you how to create. Catherine showed you in Postman. Then build your composition. And then if you want the additional features of having it automatically advance inside of Singular, then you add that script so that it rolls through the messages, which it's doing right now. And then the final piece, if you want the Google Sheet to be pushed into the data node on an increment of, say, every hour or so, you add a trigger, which Suzanne showed you. So this is the complete circle of how to get And again, the Google Sheet's not open now. It's been closed. So this thing is just going to keep running all day and into the night. Right?
So
And
what's that? What's our Google Sheet trigger set at? Is it 5 minutes?
Update every 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So we've got 20 different messages that are just going to loop through until 5 minutes have gone by, and then the new set of RSS data of those 20 messages is kind of going to come in. I don't know how frequently Google grabs that new data from BBC. It's got its own time.
That I'm not sure about. I'm sure we could dig around and find it, but you're right. Like certain RSS feeds come in at different weights, and you know that the sky's the limit on that. I used the import. Let me just jump over to the sheet again. We used import feed, but there's a whole host of them. There's import HTML. You can import XML data feeds, HTML. HTML, you can define like a website in a table and bring in the table, and then it will display. So, that takes a little exploration. But the basic one, like I find the BBC is a really nice one, just because it's a very consistent RSS return, and they have lots and lots of categories of data. So it's not just that's the one they have. Let's delete this guy.
And you can also do import. They've got an import finance one. We just released our suite of Google chart widgets that turns your set of Google Sheet data into a chart, whether that's a pie chart or a bar chart. What am I saying? Bar chart, a pie or bar chart, or a bunch of other different chart types. And well, now I've lost my train of thought. The finance function. Okay, so
yep.
The new finance theme has some of these new widgets in there, but what it's doing is it's using a function from Google, taking the Google's finance data and sending it into a finance theme, and displaying a lot of that data as charts. So there's a lot that you can do. You just need to sit down and figure out exactly what type of data you want, and how you want it to look. So.
Correct. And it's going to get easier as we move forward. Like I said, the Google add-on, we're drawing that up now, and I've seen some really amazing concepts that we're going to implement on that side of things. So I think that covers it, I hope. And we're going to, like I said, we'll make all of this material available in links on the YouTube channel, I believe. Or in
yeah, that'll be on the video description, this video description. So you guys will have. I don't think we're not gonna make the sheet editable for you, because that just gets into territory that we don't want to get into. But you can copy paste, or Suzanne said you can duplicate our Google Sheet, and then it'll drop it into your account, and then you'll just need to populate it in the way that Stephen did. So we'll provide you with that, the link to the REST documentation that you need to create the data node. And then
that's exactly what you're going to need to, when you get the link to that Google Sheet, it'll be shared but not editable. So you're going to want to make a copy. Then you're going to want to go get the scripts, which won't be, you'll have to create those, go into the script editor and create the function, or copy and paste the function in there. So yeah, it's a few steps, but I don't think it's daunting. We've many customers using this, because there's a lot of people that have, lots of data. Again, we showed you pushing an array. In the future, we'll show you the ability to push not just data in an array format. I mean, you can push data directly into individual control nodes, and it's not just text. You can push image paths, and you can push hex values to change colors of things. So this was just a first scratch at the surface, but pretty in depth. I think we covered it all. I'm pretty sure. I think I had a few technical issues on my little HP here today, but I think we got through it. I think.
Travis, any questions from anybody?
No, everyone said this was very informative, and
cool.
All positive feedback on this one.
What we like to
We
hear.
like that.
Yeah.
I know I certainly get a lot of questions from a variety of different customers on Google Sheet integration and getting data. So hopefully this has been helpful. And I think that's it, guys, right? We wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. Everyone enjoy their weekend.
Yes. Thank you. We'll be back with more from Singular. Thanks.
Bye.
I know.